like pretty much everything on YouTube. I felt like, oh, I probably should do something interesting, something eye-catching, something that I can put into a thumbnail and people are going to be like, oh, interesting, that's fun. I don't know, visiting 8 local bookstores, asking for recommendations of people who own it, like independent ones, which I still actually want to do, but I've been wanting to do that for forever and it's just like a lot of effort. And one thing about me is that I don't have a lot of energy for things, and it just seems like a lot. Not to mention that I left it very much to last minute. So instead, I thought I'm just gonna pack myself up, finish work, because I do work full time, get into my car, drive around an hour, get to the beach. It's one of my favorite ones. It's always really stunning here, and Scotland has decided that September is the best day for a summer-like weather. So despite the fact that some of the trees are actually showing color, which is beautiful, so immediately everyone's leaving home. There's a lot of traffic. People just desperately seeking outdoors for the 2 days in a year that we get that we can pretend that it's kind of summer. So instead of doing something interesting and instead of doing something entertaining, you're stuck here with me just sitting and chatting. 8 years then. So to everyone's disappointment, this isn't actually a carrot cake one. But we had very limited options in the very much local co-op to this beach. But it is red velvet with something. Popcorn, maybe? On the day that you're watching, but for me tomorrow, is going to be 8 years of me being online. Well, that's not true, but 8 years of me being on YouTube. 8 years ago today, I uploaded that video of me being very blonde. I think it's funny if you watch it, but also please don't watch it. That is a dick move if you watch it. My voice is probably, I don't know how octaves work, but I'm gonna guesstimate like 5 higher. As light goes, this is against every guide and and how to. Please enjoy this very 50-50 of my face. All I have for you is some looking back and reminiscing. I already woke up in a very much state of thinking and about life and philosophizing, which was actually not very good for my mental health. We can probably stay until sunset and I can hold hands with you and spend a very romantic evening together. I guess we're starting from the very beginning because the first question is what got you into reading in the first place? I think I have to give credit to the beautiful comic of Witch. They used to sell these at like these kind of magazine kiosks back home, and I used to get not every issue but like whenever I could, and then my friend would also get the issues that I didn't have and vice versa, and then we would kind of share and read that together. So I guess at the same time as me being excited to read something, I also learned early on how a book club feels like, but without knowing what it actually is called. I can't quite remember if that was actually the first thing. I used to also live in front of like a kindergarten that actually had the local library. It was tiny. It was a tiny, tiny room with a couple of rows of books, but it did, of course, had a lot of kids stuff. I remember this book specifically. I have no idea if it was translated or not, but it was about a dog that it was just really sad. I remember just sobbing, and that was my first traumatic experience about with the book, I feel. I picked it up because it had like a cute dog on the cover, right? And then I got traumatized forever. I almost wish that I would remember the name, but at the same time, maybe it's for the best that I don't. Of course, there was Harry Potter, the first one that I was clearly so into it that it consumed my entire being, and it was a big help. Like it was a lot to a lot of people whenever you're going through stuff, and it was truly an experience where you get transported somewhere. So that was, of course, very core. I mean, if you've been in this channel, I don't know, before 2020, you will know full well how much that meant to me. Of course, we have pivoted accordingly due to the author's true colors, which is a big shame, but it is what it is. Besides that, there was also, I think, a German book series that was called You Shouldn't Kiss Witches, middle grade to YA equivalent of back then. I can't remember if it was fantasy or not, or if it was just like a high school type of experience with boys. I'm pretty sure if I read it now, it would be very heteronormative. At that point, it was, again, revolutionary for me because it was talking about crushes and there was a strong friend group. Like, oh, another one that I read was Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, and that was also quite memorable because I couldn't wait until the translation came out for the second or the third. I don't actually remember how many there are, to the point where I downloaded an English version somewhere and then sent it to my mom's computer at work and then proceeded to use up a whole block of paper sneakily at her work to print it out. But that was also very much one that, clearly I wanted to read it that badly. There's a lot of the same sort, so I'm going to pick one, but note that I've seen the other ones that are, similar, so I'm just kind of putting them together. But what inspired you to become a booktuber and how did you stick with it? I was just out of university. I did not know what I was doing. My whole plan was entirely different until I actually graduated and then decided to kind of put my plan on hold, which was clinical psychology, by the way. It's very, very far from what actually happened, I feel. For a very brief and somewhat insane and misguided moment, what I did was actually a beauty blog, tippity-tappity blog. I knew nothing about makeup, so that was hence the misguided. I wish I could remember who it was, but I saw a blog post by someone who was talking about books and what they were reading, and that was like a moment of, oh, people talk about books, and I haven't, so I was reading a lot when I was a kid, and then around teenage years I kind of stopped. I wasn't really reading for pleasure, and then I went to university, and then I was doing a lot of university readings, like reports and studies and whatnot, and that was kind of where all of my reading time has gone, except for a couple of Dan Brown books during holidays, and I remember very vividly actually being again at the beach, but in a different country, in Lithuania, reading The Martian whilst I was laying in the dunes, kind of hiding from the main beach because it's too hot for me and I'm not made for the heat even back then. It felt also a little bit like a personal revolution for me because I think that was probably the first sci-fi that I've read, and I was like, oh shit, I really like that. I want to say that was 2013 maybe. And then I also, throughout those years, I've read Game of Thrones, and I think up until 2020 it was literally Harry Potter on repeat to fall asleep or to do stuff. That's what it was. But other than that, I was not reading. And then just before I started YouTube, and I think that's why I was so excited to see someone actually talk about reading on a blog, I read The Name of the Wind, and that was a book that got me back into reading. I always kind of give that credit to The Name of the Wind because I feel like, and up until that point, it was a very long time since I felt that kind of passion for it, and I stayed up reading and carved out time out of my day to specifically go back to that story and continue. And I think I've not felt that in a very, very long time, and it kind of reignited that love for reading, what got me back into reading. And then I saw the blog, and then I thought to check YouTube, which I wasn't actually watching all that religiously. So I specifically went and looked for book-related content, and I do remember who was the first person that I found content from, and that was Haley in Bookland. I don't know if she still goes by the same name. I do know that she still makes content though. But I remember then I binged a couple of videos and I was sold, and then I was like, you know what, I do have a camera because I used to take photos. I can't really say it was into photography, but I took photos sometimes. So I did have a camera. It was not necessarily the best one for filming, but it worked. Picked that up, and that was it. And then I had fun. And also, with starting that, then I felt very justified, clearly, to start buying loads of books. Questionable spending of my money because I had such a big gap between reading and not reading. And then when I went into this phase, the type of books that I saw available was very different from when I was, growing up. I just didn't check out what was available. But at the same time, when I was growing up, first of all, I had to only pick from books that are either local or translated, which was a much smaller pool, but at the same time, I think that the publishing industry probably changed quite a bit, especially in YA spaces. And I was, 24 and very excitable, very behind on my books, very behind on the whole entire reading experience. So I was very excited to get into that. And it was a good time, man. What would you do different if you could start over? Question. I don't think I would do a lot of things differently just because I feel like, not to be that person, but everything that led here, if you change one thing, what sort of multi-universe thing are you gonna go down with? And you don't know what the ripple effect is gonna have. But I do think I got too excited about all the new releases and all the exciting things. But at the same time, like, I'm happy for the past G that she got that excited, because I have not felt like that in a very long time. A lot of my life now, for quite a few years now, 6 years, is all about books. So I think it's only natural that you go through stages of sometimes being like a bit less excited about that compared to, some previous times. Yeah, I was very excited, but to the point where I was buying books for sure faster than I was reading books. I think a lot of the books that I originally had on my shelves are now gone, because by the time that I actually would have gotten to them, my taste has then moved, and or I've learned my taste better. I've recognized that this particular synopsis is probably not the book that I'm gonna like, so then I would, donate it, which is fine, because supporting the industry and also then donating the books, that's fine, but not so great for the wallet. And if I could change that, I probably would go a little bit easier. Utilize the library that, by the way, does not like me for some reason and I still can't access. Maybe they're just xenophobic. No, I think there's a bunch of questions of a similar caliber of, what do you look back to most fondly and proudly, and what is your favorite video, what was your highlight of the bookish community, that kind of thing. I think for the favorite videos, I don't know if it's sad, but I don't have anything that like immediately springs to mind. So I don't know if we maybe need to fix that. That being said, I am very, very proud of the redoing of the readathon. When, we said goodbye to the first version of it, that sense of reliving the nostalgia years and being in a world that is already so established, that obviously came with its own advantages, and the community and the support, that I think was when my channel to me felt like it was thriving. Aurelium has been a child of labor. Child of labor? Is that a saying?
Labor of love.
Labor of love?
Yeah. I think
child of labor, no?
I think you're confusing labor of love with love child.
Huh?
It yearned for the mind.
When I did stop the magical readathon, there was a big, big chance that that would just be it. I think it was also the fact that I put so much myself into, cultivating that community and also making it feel I hope that it felt inclusive. The sheer amount of work that went into that version, I think that it was very easy for me to just be sad and bury it. But I'm very happy that I managed to then turn it around into what it is now. It will never be the same, nor should it be the same, so that's fine. But some parts of it I hope are better. Some parts of it I'm sure it will just never be the same. Doesn't matter how much I try. I'm very happy that it's continuing in the way that it is, and I hope that people are enjoying it as well. So of course, then to go back to the question, is the magical readathon the whole shebang. I disappear, I don't know if you noticed. But from time to time I just disappear a little bit. At least so far you could count on me to reappear for the readathon. So I think it also just felt to me like coming back to the community and coming back, quote unquote, home, right? Whenever that rolls back in. So I think it's meaningful to me. Not to sound like a lonely ass bitch, but it feels nice. Apart from that, I think the videos that surprised me the most are the ambience ones, because I think if you showed those videos to the 2016 me, it would be quite shocking, because I just didn't think that I could pull that off. And obviously I'm not using the programs that I think are meant for those videos to be used, but I am finding ways to do it either way.
Like, what's this nerd shit?
Why?
Because you weren't doing the Aurelium stuff at that point.
The fly is eating my muffin. How has doing YouTube changed you as a person? I don't know. If I didn't start YouTube, I wouldn't have known of the place that I work at now. I work at Fairyloot, for those who may not know. Been there for 6 years now. Just from that alone, I spend I obviously speak with my close friends, but I do speak to my Patreons and people online pretty much on a daily, if not, if not daily, then every other day basis. And so to imagine myself not doing YouTube it's difficult. So I don't know how it's changed me, because I don't know what the version of me would be without it. That being said, this goes back into another good question. I'm wearing my contacts and it's making it very difficult to read. These are walking around contacts, not reading contacts. I'll find it later. But the question was something of the sort of like, how how have you not stopped yet? Or like, have you ever considered stopping or something? The answer to that is yes. I think I've spoken about it a couple of times, but I go through stages of like being this close to just eating everything. It's twofold. The first fold is a lot of those feelings correlate or are on the kind of entail of a very bad flare up or a wave of really ill health, if you don't know. Which I'm sure you do, but if you don't know, I do have chronic pain. I have chronic migraine. I have some facial nerve pain that we're still trying to solve. That is the current most annoying thing that's been ongoing for 2 years. The migraines were for 10 probably now, actually. I got that. I have tools for that one now. The face pain, however, can get fucked. I'm hoping to manage that at some point. And then, a lot of other chronic thingy majingies. If I go through a worse period with that, the spoons are a bit more sparse. The fuse is a bit more shorter, can't even speak. The brain fog, actually, speaking of not speaking, the energy, everything, it's and again, I work full time. That alone can be very challenging, and then you do nothing afterwards. You're just out of spoons, out of energy, out of will to live. On top of that, there's a lot of emotional turmoil that happens during the migraine attack as well. And my migraines are multi-day ones. They're not just like one and done. They're like, oh, I'm gonna stay here for like a week or two. So when I have a particularly bad time, then I'm just like, what's the point? Like, I can't do this, I can't do that. And then comes the second beautiful fold. And despite, I do think that I'm pretty okay with that as things go. But there's still a lot of like YouTube is set up. I think everything is set up in a way that it's very easy to compare yourself. Like the first thing you see when you go into the YouTube studio is how your most recent video did in comparison to your other 10 most recent uploads. So from the get-go, you're already being compared to yourself and being like, look, you did worse than before. My favorite is when you keep uploading stuff and every new video ranks 10, meaning that every new video is doing worse and worse and worse and worse. And this is what we call a consistent decline. My channel during the Harry Potter and the Magical Readathon at the beginning stages, very steadily growing, and it was very, a predictable growth and very reassuring. And then once I swapped, there were loads of times where I would go up and then go down. Just kept going down and down and down. And again, I'm not someone who is able to upload every day. I'm not someone who is able to do the month-long, really interesting videos, which, honestly, hats off to all the people doing that, especially if they're doing that on top of their full-time job. Doesn't help that I'm not a fastest reader. Those videos are amazing. And that's what's currently like driving. That's the current kind of situation, I think, in YouTube, and has been for, a year or two. Those big, intricate challenges, they are very entertaining to watch. I watch them myself. I get it. I just cannot compete with that. So that was another little bit that is a bit, maybe I should just disappear into the background and just go away. I'm still here, so there's that. So that kind of also goes back to the how has YouTube changed in 8 years and how much you changed. Well, the second part is too packed. 8 years is a long time, especially I feel in your 20s. Like we went through the whole pandemic. Honestly, pandemic was a weirdly, like obviously it was scary and just a terrible time overall, but it was also very interesting seeing other people match you in pace because everyone was locked up and not able to do stuff. And I was already living with very limited things that I could do. At that point, it was even worse because I didn't have ways that I talked about just now of, managing my migraine. That was an interesting experience as well. Not obviously talking about other aspects of COVID. But I do think that YouTube has obviously changed a lot. I think a lot of that is another platforms popping up, especially TikTok with the short form content and then reels. You either watch stuff that doesn't last longer than a minute or you put on something that is a movie feature length in general to just last longer. And that's where all of those big projects, I think, come in with the big experiments. So I think it does make sense in my mind why that has also moved towards that direction. But of course, with TikTok, and book talks particularly. I hate to use the word competing, but there's so many hours in a day that people are gonna watch stuff. So that I'm sure that also has impacted YouTube in a big way and what content people are putting out and what content are people watching. And to some, obviously, that has been a great thing. To some, they maybe swapped platforms. How has your reading taste changed? Ooh. As I said, I have not really known what my reading taste to begin with was. I think I don't know when I realized that I really love sci-fi. Actually, that would be interesting to clock. Maybe I already knew, but I don't think I've quite noticed the speculative love in me until I read Dark Matter, and I think that is why that book means so much to me, because that was the first time that I read something and I was like, oh shit. Like, this is for me. Easy, but thought-provoking sometimes, and it was it's just best of both worlds. And I don't think that I was familiar with that genre before I started, so I don't know where I got that recommendation from, but I'm willing to bet that it was from someone on YouTube. So for that alone, I'm very grateful that I've started this channel. Do you remember what video really put you over the edge / went viral, or has your growth been a steady growth for the past 8 years? Has not been. It has not been a steady growth. I do remember one video that has gone viral, and like often I feel like you hear these stories when someone says I've uploaded that video and then it was whatever, got the usual views for a long time until, I don't know, like a couple of weeks later it just started blowing up. I could tell that primarily got to people's feed who are not following me. Obviously it got like I don't know how many millions, but it has millions of views, and it's a Harry Potter advent calendar unboxing. I have a theory as to why it happened and why then. I think I've uploaded it, and then a couple of weeks later that, I don't know if you remember, but I believe it was around that time that the Zoella calendar got all the controversy happening, and I'm assuming maybe the algorithm was like, oh, you know what, this is also an advent calendar, and started pushing into people's feed. I don't necessarily know if a lot of people actually stayed. That's a different thing, like people hit subscribe, and whether they're active after that or not, that is a completely different story. But it was also the first time, because at that point, I was a very safe little space. Everyone was polite and demure. Well, these people that watched that video were for sure not demure. And it also, of course, happens to be a video that I didn't love personally, because I remember I was hosting a friend, and the light was going down because it was like, around Christmas time, because the advent calendar. So it was like really shit light. I was rushing it. I was just like, it was not my best video, even then, by those standards. So I was just overall very overwhelmed by the negativity coming in, first of all, because I was not really used to dealing with that. And then second of all, I was just constantly like, why that video? Like, why? And I remember that was the first time as well that like people started making fun of me for being foreign, or like speaking with an accent, and liking Harry Potter when I was, over 20. So it was an interesting experience. And then there was a time, after the Magical Readathon came out, that brought in people. And that one was a completely different story, because it brought in people that joined the community, and it was a community type of feeling, and I felt like I got to know a lot of people, because it was, again, a slower kind of introduction, but also because we had other places to talk on, like not just the comments, but Discord, and at that point Twitter. Actually, that was the only time that I used the platform, to be honest. So it was a completely different thing, and I did a lot of unboxings that helped out the channel quite a bit in the past. So that was the big boom, and then since 2020 it just kind of stayed around the same time. But also, on that note, I want to thank you for being here. I also really want to know how many of those 8 years have you been here for. I wonder if there's going to be someone here that's actually stayed from the very beginning. If so, thank you. I'm very, very grateful, but doesn't matter how long you've been here. I just think it's really sweet of you to stop by and say hi and check in. And if I get to be your dinner eating background noise, then that's also amazing. Yeah, let me know how long you've been here for. Extra thankful for you for sticking around. I appreciate you, basically. I am, though, very cold on my ass. Get Logan's jacket. Logan. Maybe I could.
Maybe.
I'm very cold. Can I get your jacket, please?
Yeah.
No, to sit on.
Oh.
Oh, I ruined my cupcake. I'm aware that this has been going on for a long while. Feel free to pause or exit. But I'm gonna continue for a little while until either my camera or my microphone dies. Besides bookish content, is there anything else you want to incorporate into your channel? I actually think I primarily talk about non-bookish content on my Patreon, which I'm sure does not sell my Patreon very well here. Sometimes I go through phases of really wanting to talk about the health aspect of it all. But then I am also keenly aware that every time I kind of bring it up, there's also a lot of people who leave, which I understand as well, because maybe they have very valid reasons for it and it's not ignorance. Maybe it's just that they deal with a lot of stuff themselves and don't want to spend chill time talking about it. But then I do go through phases of wanting to talk about that. And then also I love crocheting. I don't know if you know, but I love crocheting and I love gaming. But I don't think I have the health for streaming that. And just, it's like a lot of things that I would need to learn as well, how to do it. And I just don't know if I have it in me. But yes, there's loads of things that I could, talk about. And I do touch upon it in vlogs, so I think that's where people see some of that as well, and I hope you guys enjoy it, especially for someone who is not the fastest of readers. I have a lot of other things to talk about instead of reading, so hopefully that helps. Shall we wish for something now that it actually is staying up? Okay, make another one. Yay. It's all sand though. This is no longer edible. What are your plans for the future? I do not know, but if you have any requests, this would be the place. I really enjoy, this is the second Q&A that I'm doing outside, and I actually really enjoy that kind of content. I like watching that. It feels kind of shit though sometimes. Whenever I upload a video and it's like a Q&A thing, despite me liking watching those, because that's when I feel like I can actually get to know the person a little bit more. I don't know why, but it always gives me a slight ick uploading it myself. It feels like who am I to do a Q&A? Do you know what I mean? It sounds so self-absorbed. I don't know. I don't know how to explain what I feel about it, but if you give me the very slight push that I would need for making more of those videos, probably gonna do it. I did actually consider at one point opening a second channel for all the things that are non-bookish. It is still there. It is called GD Earthling. I actually really like the name, and I have, however, kind of decided that don't think I'm gonna make the second channel, but I could migrate that name into this channel and then just put everything on this, just again because it just feels like so much effort. I don't know, maybe I will, I don't know, but I kind of made that decision by the fact that I have already migrated the banner of that channel to this one, so I just kind of gave up on that. I do really like the name GD Earthling. It makes sense to me as well because I also really like sci-fi, and it for some reason just makes it sound like, because I have to specify that I'm the Earthling, so clearly there's aliens around. How's your bag these days in comparison? You know what? Actually very sore today. Do you miss your blonde hair? It wouldn't even matter if I did. I don't think that my hair can barely handle the color that it is now. How does it feel to know you've created such a lovely community? I feel I take very little credit for it. I just got very, very lucky, honestly. I could say other stuff, but I feel like that would get too soppy, so I don't think I can handle that today. But I genuinely am extremely grateful on a daily for the community that I got. And again, I don't think I can take credit for it. That's all you. So thank you for being nice and decent. I like this comment that is not a question, but it just says, I'm not convinced that's you. I found a photo that is of me editing the very first video that I've uploaded. I'm not quite sure whether that's a compliment or not. Would you do it again? I would like to have a glimpse into the life I would be living if I didn't decide to do it. And that sounds so dramatic, but I kid you not, that decision really was, if we go back into the sci-fi thing and thinking about, prongs in the timelines, that is definitely one. That is a major one as well, because again, it affected what I do for work, what I do for fun, what community I have around me, what friends I made along the way. It literally affects pretty much everything outside my family and Logan, because I did meet Logan before then. But I would love if I could get one of those time travel-y experiences and I could just have a little glimpse. I'm not saying to swap places, but I would love to have a glimpse of what my life would look like. Like, what would I do? Like, what career would I have gone after? What other hobbies would I have prioritized? It would be so funny if it was still reading. It was just slightly different. And it would be, I wouldn't be too shocked. Maybe I've written a book or something. Maybe I went the author route. Not that I necessarily can write for shit, but, a girl can dream. Yeah, it would just be very, very interesting to have a little look into that. But yes, I would say that I would do it again because I'm a bit scared of what life would be if I did. Like, it's very inconceivable to me to imagine. So I would do it out of fear, no. Do you think that YouTube has improved or harmed your reading life overall? That is a good question. I don't know. I stepped into YouTube whilst I was rediscovering the love for reading, so I wouldn't necessarily not have continued reading, but I do think that I would have read less. Now, would I have read more of what I knew had a better chance of me liking it rather than going with, oh my god, a crime has been committed? I don't know if I would have maybe, gone for something that was so hyped. So I don't know for the quality of my reading, but I do think that I would have read less. I don't know. Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Anyway, the camera has died. Like, this is misleading because we are actually quite freezing now. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being here. I hope that you had a lovely sit down with me. I'll see you for some sprints. Back to nerdy stuff. All right. Thank you and goodbye.